Hey, it's Carlo Prusa, and welcome back to Carlo Prusa MMA. Today, I am with special guest, a buddy of mine, Mr. Malcolm Wellmaker, coming off his victory at Icon FC 5 in Savannah, Georgia. Malcolm, what have you been up to, man? Have you had a good Christmas, good holidays so far?
Yeah, man. Holiday's been fantastic. I've been eating a lot, but I've been working super hard, so it's cool. Been doing a lot of training, man, trying to level up. We've been looking at things that I can improve on and really focusing in those areas. So training's good, training's hard. Spending time, I've been doing my fitness business on the side. That's going well. And yeah, man, life is good.
Now, how did Malcolm Wellmaker first get into the world of mixed martial arts?
I was 22 years old, man. I had no prior experience in any type of combat sports. But I had a friend I grew up with, and he was doing amateur MMA. I think at the time he might have been like 0-1, 0-2. He wasn't great, but he was training with the team that I currently train with now. And I just reached out to him because I wanted to get in shape. And so he brought me up to the school with the Faglers. And man, I just been with him ever since, man.
Now, growing up, were you a fan of the sport? Did you watch UFC? Did you watch MMA? Did you look up any of the fighters?
Not even, man. Not at all. I mean, I watched basketball growing up. I played, little league basketball with my brothers, and I had, hoop dreams a little bit, but I wasn't that great. I was never an athlete. And man, I didn't even know much about MMA other than Anderson Silva and John Jones. That's all I knew.
And now, when you told people that you were going to be starting to train in MMA and then eventually compete in it, what was everyone's initial reactions and thoughts when you told them you were doing this?
A lot of people were very surprised, man, because I didn't have an athletic background at all. And on top of that, I never set my sights on competing in the first place. My coaches approached me. They saw the progress I was making, and we had a conflict coming to Augusta, and they asked if I wanted to compete. And at that point, that would have been 9 months into training that I had my first competition. And when I started sharing the news, man, people were surprised, but they were excited, man. And I don't think any of us thought it was going to go this far.
Going into that first amateur fight, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was against Will Spawn, right?
So that was my MMA debut. I did a kickboxing debut back in 2017, and that's what that show was. And then I think it was maybe around a year later when I did that fight against Will Spann. Yeah.
And now, when you were able to, make your debut and win an impressive faction, did that kind of give you some more validity and allow you to think mentally, okay, this is something that I think I could do here?
Yeah, man. When I started competing, man, I was knocking out a lot of people in dramatic fashion, like the Will Spann knockout. It was devastating. And at that point, I think I started to realize that I had potential, and the people around me started believing that I could possibly go much farther than we originally anticipated.
As an amateur, you've had a 9-1 record and you had a multitude of finishes, whether it be on the feet, whether it be on the ground. For Malcolm Wellmaker, how important is it to get a finish? Is that always the goal? Is that the mindset?
Absolutely. I want finishes in every single fight that I'm in. And the way I fight, is for finishes. I throw shots with, ill intent. All of them are I'm trying to make them all count. And if I go to the ground, it's because I feel like I have the potential to finish the fight, which is why, I have those finishes on the ground. But every time I compete, I'm in there to try to get out of there early.
Do you and your camp make it really a precedent with you to ensure that you're covering all areas of martial arts, whether it be the striking or it be the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu? Is being a well-rounded, versatile fighter, is that very important to you?
It's more important than I want it to be because I get tired of having to roll with these guys that's folding me up and, wrestling. Man, I started off just kickboxing, and they told me how important it would be for me to develop the rest of my game. And I was hard-headed because I was still winning MMA fights with knockouts. I went 3-0 undefeated with no problems. And then in my fourth fight, I went against a very, very good wrestler. Carlos Andres was his name. And he gave me a hard time. He held me down, and I had to learn the lesson the hard way that I had to focus on other disciplines. And since then, I've probably spent more time doing everything else than striking since that fight.
That fourth amateur fight, you lost via armbar. You stuck an armbar and made you submit to it. Um, After that, did things change? Did you look at things a little differently? I mean, was this kind of a turning point in your young career at that point?
Yeah, actually, man, it was really, really hard because the timing of it as well, because it was right before COVID shut down all the shows for 2 years. So, I lost that fight and I lost in my hometown in front of a lot of people. It was hard for me. And then, there were no shows going on. I think I took like a 15-month layoff. So I debated a long time whether I even wanted to compete again. So when I got through that storm and I committed to it wholeheartedly, I think I became a much better athlete with a lot more drive and determination.
Now let's talk about COVID for a minute. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic messed up a lot of people in
Yeah.
different industries, not even just MMA. But what was that time like? Was it hard to try to keep on training still? Was it hard to stay in shape? What difficulties did you run into?
Man, so myself, our gym closed down for a few months completely, just like everywhere else. And we were doing like, backdoor training sessions where if you were, in the inner circle, we would, come in through the back door where nobody could see all the cars parked out. But it wasn't frequent. But I actually spent a tremendous amount of time running. And I mean, I was running 50 miles a week, 20 miles every Sunday, and just really, really like obsessing with trying to push my performance in that area because it was something that I never spent a lot of time doing. And I found, something to invest all that free time I had because of the pandemic into running. So.
Now, when did you fight again after COVID? Did you fight again that in 2020 in the August, September time?
It was against Kiera West for NFC. I just remember it was 15 months after my fight with Carlos Andres in that May. So I can't do the math to call the date, but that's about what it was.
And now at that time, things were still kind of crazy. There were a bunch of different
Mm-hmm.
restrictions, a bunch
Yep.
of different rules. What were some of those rules during that fight? I mean, were there fans there? Was it a bunch of testing? How different was it?
Yeah, man. With Kiera West and the following fight, I remember having to get a COVID test multiple times, get swabbed multiple times before being able to actually compete. My corners having to get swabbed, and then even in the dressing rooms, like we weren't allowed to have anybody else back there. They even wanted us wearing masks in the corners, in the locker rooms and stuff. It was very frustrating. It was challenging, and anybody that was competing in those times really, really wanted it because there was a lot of hoops we had to jump through to get it.
You turned pro earlier in 2020, but before that, you had a 10 fight amateur career. What was the holdup, if you will? Why did it take you a minute to actually turn professional?
So I was dominating a lot of guys and I was fighting some good guys too and winning, but the truth was, we just wasn't where they wanted me, my coaches, by when I say they wanted me to be when I went into the pros. Because to be honest, I wanted to go pro a little bit sooner. And I think a big reason why was because I saw a lot of the guys that I came up through the amateur ranks going pro and getting wins that I felt like, man, I could be doing it too. But I just had to listen to my coaches and they were saying, it's still tough guys in the amateur ranks that will be a challenge for you. That if we go through these camps and we develop those tools, when you do go pro, you'll be so much more prepared to take fights and be active. And it worked because this year when I went pro, in a matter of, it was like 5 months, I took 3 fights and got all 3 finishes against good guys, so it worked. The plan went accordingly. So it's just, having to be patient and listen to my coaches.
Was being patient, was that a little mentally tough, I guess, on you, being able to trust in the process, knowing that, you have a lot of skill, you have finished these guys, they're starting to win, but just listening and knowing, I just need to be a little more well-rounded. Was that mentally tough?
It's hard, man. It's very hard. And I've seen a lot of people come through my gym and a lot of people go through other gyms and, dealing with the frustration of wanting something at a moment where the coaches know better and the coaches have been here before and the coaches have your best interest in mind, but it goes against your desire and your fire to be the best and compete at the highest level and wanna quit or go against the grain. And it's challenging. It's very challenging, but you have to have that faith in your coaches. It has to be unwavering. You got to buy into it completely. And fortunately, I'm with the team that picked me up from zero experience. So, if they tell me go stare at a wall for an hour, I'm gonna stare at a wall for an hour if it's gonna make them happy. So
You made your pro debut in June. You fought a guy, Austin Carter, in the second round. You were able to take him down. You had his back at first. He flipped over. You started landing shots. Then he gave you his back again, and you snuck in the rear naked choke. Walk me through to the point where you had him, you were face on with him, you were laying those shots, and then he gave you his back. Walk me through that point to the end.
So he is actually a really, really high level wrestler. And aside from that, he's an absolute dog. I just want to say that first and foremost because I hit him with some crazy hard, clean shots. And every time I hit him, he started walking forward even faster and hungrier. But as far as that exchange goes, he's really comfortable with body locks and upper body ties. And we ended up in a position where he went for a body lock on me. And what he did was when he turned to try to throw me, I actually tripped him and we went down. When we went down, I cleared my arm by limp arming out. And that's when I ended up on his back. And I've got the tendency to where when I get on top of guys, whether it's on the back or whether it's in mount, I go for finishes, right? Like I don't really prioritize control and position as much as I probably should. I posture up and I try to hurt. So that's what I did with him. So when I postured up to try to put down the strikes, he ended up rolling over, going in the mount. And then when he did, I ended up hitting him with harder shots. And then that's when he rolls back over to give me his back again. And he's a wrestler. So we ended up in this position where he was almost up and he reached back to try to grab my inner leg and do a switch. And when he reached back, I reached over that arm, snuck the choke in, and finally finished the fight. Because he did not want to quit, man. I tell you what, he's a tough guy for sure.
Were you kind of surprised that he gave you his back a second time there?
Yes and no. I wasn't, because I knew how desperate he was. I knew that I was hitting him hard. I knew I was putting shots on him that he didn't want to take anymore. But I was surprised at how deeply I sunk the choke when he reached for the leg, which was I think it was just a mistake that he made because of his wrestling background.
No,
it was super deep.
Following the victory over Carter, you went over to Icon FC. How did you get in touch with Dean and Jorge and those guys at Icon, and what gravitated you to that promotion?
So actually, my point of contact is Jesse Wallace. He trains with a good friend of mine, Amon Cosme. We call him Moon, which a lot of y'all know. Great fighter. But Moon puts me in contact with Jesse, who actually works for First Round. And Jesse had reached out to me when I was still an amateur, wanting to work with me as far as management goes. And so, I was reluctant because, that was a step into territory that I was unfamiliar with, working with a management company or even signing contracts outside of just, a fight contract. So it was kind of hard for me at first, but he kept working on me, kept reaching out to me, kept talking to me. And, he told me he could get me an opportunity on the Icon show. And I knew how big the Icon show was. I was seeing all the success that Moon was having. And we decided that if he could get us a good fight on that stage, on that platform, then we do business together. And we went into business together for that fight for, the Icon show where I got the crazy knockout. And ever since then, man, we've been working together and we've been doing fantastic. So I met Dean in the process. I met Jorge in the process, Pearl, you. And it's been awesome, man. It's been a great experience. I've met some fantastic people in the organization. I really do feel like I could call them friends, honestly.
So that first fight at Icon, you took on Langston Spikes, and man, you mentioned it. That knockout was absolutely nasty. You caught him with a very nice left hook. Before you landed that, were there any openings to do it? Did you see any opportunities where you could have landed that? And walk me through right before you were able to, put him out there.
So he actually is a very dangerous striker. He, had a knockout 2 weeks before that where he knocked somebody out just as dramatically. Very powerful. He was a bit bigger than me. He was pretty strong. But we knew he was a striker, and that was that. So, my game plan actually was not to take him down and keep him there, but to threaten it and utilize it so that we can have him, worrying about more than just my hands and feet. And so, there was an exchange where I took him down and I landed like a slight elbow that he didn't like. He had to expend energy getting up. But as far as the striking exchanges goes, so I'm predominantly an orthodox fighter and I'm comfortable in southpaw. Well, he actually came out in southpaw and I responded by going southpaw. And I realized while, the exchanges were going on that he was less comfortable addressing the things that come from a southpaw fighter than an orthodox fighter. So that's why I decided to spend more time there. And, I was landing hard roundhouses to the body on him from southpaw. And the more I landed on him, the more comfortable I was coming into his range because he was starting to get on the defensive. And at the time that I landed that shot, it was me kind of walking him down, making him more and more uncomfortable. And I could see him loading up to throw something kind of out of just responding to being walked into the cage. And at the same moment that he opened up is when I threw the left hand, and it just hit him right on point to make it, as devastating as possible.
What I found was kind of hilarious after that fight is, I mean, you land this amazing knockout. People are going crazy, and you look at you, and you're all serious. You're not showing no excitement. You're just walking like, oh, just another thing, just another thing. Inside, were you freaking out? I mean, were you pretty pumped up over that?
Not yet. Now I did so for me, my coaches, they're really big on, making sure you're respectful and making sure, you prioritize the health of your opponents and all that kind of stuff. So I always try to not celebrate too crazy after, big moments like that. But aside from that, when I compete, man, it's like a switch gets flipped in my head, and my emotions are a lot less, normal than they usually are. So when stuff like that happens, because I've had a lot of knockouts and somewhere where I haven't reacted whatsoever, I'll knock them out, and I'll kind of just have like this peace, like this calmness within me, and just satisfaction with the process. But after like 20 seconds or so, 30 seconds or so, the moment starts to realize itself. And then that was when I saw Jorge Masvidal, and I was like, wait, I just did that in front of Jorge Masvidal, and like he's on his feet right now. And then that's when it was like, all right, yeah, I gotta get up, I gotta hop this cage, and I gotta go say what's up to him. So it's those initial seconds, not so much, but shortly after, especially after seeing Jorge, it was big.
What was that conversation like after you hopped the cage? What did you guys talk about?
For a second, I couldn't remember it, but it actually all came back to me what I said. And so the guy that I fought, Langston, is actually from Miami, and that's Jorge Masvidal's place. So as soon as I hopped the cage, I remember going to him, and I looked at him, and I was like, hey, I know your man was from Miami, and I hate I had to do it, but I had to. And he was like, bro, that's all good. Like, he was like, you put on the show, he was showing me love. And then I held up my hand, I was like, and that was with the left, because the left is not my power shot, it's my right hand. He was like, he was already talking about, he was like, look, man, come see me right after you get your hand raised. He wanted to talk to me and my coach, and talk about the next show, and just how happy he was for me. So it was a sporadic conversation all over the place, kind of like that, but it was good, man.
Following that contest, you fought again in October, and we were talking the weigh-ins against before the Wingate fight. You were looking to try to pick up another impressive finish like that, obviously. In that fight, you were able to knock him down. You got him on the ground, and you finished him off via submission. Overall, what do you think went right to you in that fight? And going in there, were you looking for a submission? Were you looking for a knockout? Did you have any particular way you wanted this thing to end?
So, I remember before our fight, he did a couple interviews, and he was talking about how, he was willing to stand and bang with me. And man, if I had a nickel for every time I heard somebody say that, right? But most of the time when people say that, and excluding Langston, because I knew he was, a bona fide true striker. But, most of the time, if somebody does train multiple disciplines, if they stand with me after, I get my rhythm going and I start landing hard shots, it would be crazy. It would be hard for them to fight their natural instinct to shoot for a shot. So I kind of knew that would happen. So shortly into the fight, I remember landing a lead leg body kick to him in the middle of an exchange, and I saw it hurt him. And shortly after that, he actually ducked under one of my twos and tried to shoot for a takedown, which I defended. And at that point, I knew the rest of the game was going to be, look out for his shots and stay on the outside, be patient, and pick the right ones to commit to. And that's what happened. I was patient. I picked my shots. I landed a nice body like shovel hook before the kick to the head. And then when I took him down, he was pretty shaken up, which is the only time I follow people to the ground, and the choke wasn't hard to secure. So.
You competed 3 times professionally in a 5-month span. Did you enjoy staying that active?
I loved it. I wanted to fight again in December. And I'm hoping for January, which is at this point unlikely. But our plan was, as soon as we went pro, to take as many fights as frequently as possible, as long as we were healthy and they were good fights. And that's been the hardest part at this point. sometimes the matchmaking process ends up being shorter notice than ideal, and you don't get to have full-blown camps before your competitions. And it's been hard to get guys to commit to a fight with me, or me to commit to certain guys without having an appropriate camp for it. So the matchmaking has been the problem as of lately, and not because of anybody's fault in particular, but just where I'm at now. Because it's like, I'm at a point to where I've proven to be dangerous enough that people have to respect me and give me a proper camp. But I'm, still early in my career to where I can't take fights against guys with tremendous experience. That would be unfair. So it's just one of those things where, it's a matchmaking thing that has to be addressed.
Following the last two icon fights, are people starting to come out of the woodwork now? Are you starting to get a lot more attention, whether it be social media or media just talking about you in general?
Yeah, I got a little bit on social media. I didn't get as much as I thought I was gonna get, which is fine. Which I'm not really, super big on, getting the clout online. But what I have gotten is a lot of people locally, who have taken notice and who have reached out to me and showed me how much they admire what I'm doing. A lot of people in Augusta, I go to the gym, like, cause I go to Golds and I do, some of my conditioning there, my strength training there. And, just out in public, man, just a lot of people are seeing what I'm doing and they're telling me that they're taking notice and they're proud of me. So hopefully, I can put Augusta on the map, man, and we can make it to a big platform, and I can really, 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 make the local area proud.
Now, ultimately, what's your end goal here? What do you want to accomplish here in your MMA career?
First and foremost, man, I want to go to the UFC. That is like my hard goal. That's my concrete goal. For a few reasons. When I got into MMA, which was, 6 years ago when I had my first training session, Conor McGregor was taking over the game. I admired him so much. I saw what he did. And I saw, the UFC be the organization he did it in. Now, there's a lot of other organizations, obviously, that are great, respectable organizations that treat their fighters fantastic. But, UFC is like the prestigious one. If don't nobody know anything about MMA, they know what the UFC is. They know who Chuck Liddell is and all that other stuff. So I want to go to the UFC, man, because that level of success would mean a lot to me, and it would mean so much to be able to be the fighter out of my school, to put my team on that platform, to put my coaches in that corner in some Venom sweatsuits, and for them to prove that they are as good that they know they are, that I know they are. That's my first and foremost goal, is to get to the UFC. And then when I get to the UFC, I want to compete with the top guys. I want to get into the top 10, and I want to have some fights with some of the best guys that I admire now. I would love it. Hopefully I can catch them coming off their prime and, put on some great performances. But I want to compete with the best guys as well. So that's my goal set, man.
Have you ever, just out of fantasy, thought how you match up with guys like O'Malley and Piotr Yan and Aljamain
You called it with
Sterling?
O'Malley. O'Malley's the one. Listen, I think about Sean O'Malley all the time, because when he got into the UFC, I wasn't quite a believer yet, and I've seen his career progress, and then see him fight, Peter Yan, and to see how good he is. Like, I always used to watch him before he was where he is now and be like, man, I wonder if, like, I could go with him. And now, he's doing what he's doing. And so I still, fantasize about, what it would be like if I was to compete against him, because now he's hit that level of where I respect what he does so much. And it's like, I would be honored if I ever got to share the cage with him, Corey Sandhagen, anybody like that, man. Those guys all are fantastic fighters, and it's something I think about and visualize a lot.
So, in all honesty, do you think he actually beat Piotr Yan?
Yo, man, look, okay, all right, let me tell you what happened. Because I'm a big fan of him, more of a fan of him than I am of Peter Yan. But I was at this party that my friend was throwing for those fights that night. And out of the whole room, I think I was the only one rooting for Sean O'Malley. And after the fight was done, when they was about to make the decision, myself included, we all said that Sean O'Malley lost. So I thought he lost. I haven't went back and rewatched it. He said he rewatched it and he clearly won. But even though he did tremendously better than I expected him to, I did think that Peter Yan did enough to win the decision unanimously too. I didn't think it would have been a split decision. I was surprised when I heard a split decision. But yeah, unfortunately, no, I don't think that Sean O'Malley won that fight,
Another guy that you mentioned, obviously, Conor McGregor. Whether you like him, you hate him, you cannot knock that the guy's striking is on a whole new level. And one of the reasons I think why his striking is so good is his movements. I mean, he's literally a scientist when it comes to these movements. I mean, he focuses on it, he breaks it down. And when I look at your game, the movements, I see that. Like the way in which you're throwing these strikes, it's all well calculated, it's all timed out. Do you see some similarities between you and McGregor in striking at all? And is the movements important to your game?
100%, man. Like I said, so when I got into MMA, I didn't know a lot about it at all. I never even watched many fights. And so when I did get into it, it was at the time when Conor was about to rematch Nate Diaz. I didn't even see the first fight. So Conor McGregor was the guy that I was drawn towards. And I used to go to sleep every night watching one of his fights. I just put it up on my phone, set it up on the bedside counter, and I'd fall asleep watching one. I rewatched all of them so many times. And I knew every shot that he did, and I would study how he broke it down and set it up. And in a sense, that's you studying the sport as a student. And the things that you admire, the things that you like to see a fighter do, at some point you start incorporating them yourself. So a lot of my style does emulate what I saw him do, like his pull counters, a lot of his roundhouses, even his spinning back kicks. I've been working a lot of those. I admire his style very much, and a lot of what I do definitely has been taken from his influence.
All right, just a couple more questions for you, Malcolm.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you're doing a fitness business. I see on Instagram you're advertising all these different workouts, giving people a bunch of different workout and fitness nutrition tips. So what's going on with that? How can someone reach out to you if they need your help?
Yeah, man. So not long ago, a couple months ago, actually, is when I launched the fitness business, and it's an online fitness program, man, where I work with people, and depending on their goals, I create custom meal plans, I create custom workout plans, whatever it is for you to help you, accomplish those goals. So I started doing that because hopefully, I can be a full-time fighter and fitness coach and won't have to do anything else eventually. But predominantly most of my stuff is through social media. So Facebook, Instagram, I do a little bit of TikTok as well. But that's where I post all my content. So you can find me on Instagram at Walla the Machine, WALLA the Machine. And even if you don't even buy into the program itself, I try to post a lot of content that I find helpful. So like you said, workouts or just advice on a lot of questions that I get, whether it be about diet, motivation is a big one. And even when, it's not about actually trying to get clients, I get a lot of people that reach out to me and tell me that the content that I'm creating is helping them and giving them something to be inspired about. So yeah, man, Instagram is probably the best way to go.
So currently, right now, I mean, besides doing the fitness stuff and the fight stuff, do you have another job? Is this just these two things?
Yeah, man. So I still do welding. I'm a pipe fitter and pipe welder, union pipe fitter and pipe welder, which I got into that trade in 2015. So I've been doing that for about 7 years. And I love it. I enjoy it very much. But it is hard on the body. It's demanding hours. I don't want to go blind from looking at a welding light, for so many years. So the idea is to transition out of it and get into the fighting sports and fitness for full-time longevity.
I think a lot of people don't realize when you're up and coming in this game, you can't really just dedicate your life to it. I mean, the money isn't great in fighting right away. A lot of, I would say 90% of the regional guys, they're working some sort of 9 to 5 job in addition to training, in addition to their side hustles. Does that grind motivate you to get to the next level?
Man, that first of all, I want to compliment you because that is a fantastic question because I think that's maybe the strongest drive I have on a day-to-day basis. Like a lot of people, they'll see, my posts on Instagram, they'll see me doing a workout, they'll see me, talking about motivation and this and that. But what they don't see is, I wake up in the morning, I drive an hour to work, I work 10 hours, I come back home for another hour worth of a drive, and I got 30 minutes of downtime to try to get this footage posted on all my social media platforms that I spent all weekend shooting and recording and putting captions on and all this other crazy stuff. And then I go to training, and I'm training for 3 hours a night, and it's hard training. It's not every day is ridiculously hard, but the standard of work in that gym is hard work. We don't come in to take a day off. We don't come in to take it easy. We come in and we push each other day in and day out. And then on top of that, I got a lot of people who look up to me. So I can't come in with my head hung low. I can't come in not, you know, uplifting the people around me that's looking for answers, that's looking for motivation, instruction, and inspiration. So I have to show up as my best self day in and day out at the gym. And I train 7 days a week, some days twice a day. You know, conditioning as well, long runs, all types of crazy stuff. And you know, sometimes I take a step back and I'm like, I love the grind. I love that I'm driven and disciplined enough to do things that a lot of people aren't, and that I will accomplish things that some people won't because of it. But it's hard, man, and it's not sustainable for forever. I can't do this forever. I can do it now because I'm young and I'm living the right way, but like working this way gives me hope that at some point I won't have to work this way and that the hard work will pay off. So that's another reason why, you know, making it to the next level is big for me, because like you said, checks aren't big, man. Sometimes I take these fight trips, and between the days off of work and the money I put in gas in my trucks and the food and stuff, I won't come out in the positives very much at all, especially with pain management as well. And I can't even, like, my coaches don't ask for a dime right now, you know, because they love me. They'll even buy my food on these trips sometimes, but I would love to be able to actually pay them what they deserve. And all of that is just stuff that I constantly just think about, constantly just let, you know, drive me to get up and go to the gym for those 3 hours and do what I have to do each and every day. It's not easy, but it is something that is very powerful to make sure that I don't let any of this go to waste.
Is it safe to say at this point you're all in?
I'm all in, man. Yeah, I'm all in, man. I'm willing to give up. I have given up a lot, and I'm willing to give up more and continue to give up more to make sure that I can be successful and that I can accomplish those goals for me and my team, definitely.
Now we're about done here in 2022. Just a couple more days left, but 2023 is right around the corner. Last question for you, Malcolm. What are your goals? What are you looking to accomplish next year?
Oh man. So I listen, man, I actually was just recording a video and I was sharing with, you know, people what my 2022 goal list was like and what happened. But for 2023, man, first and foremost, my goal is to make it to the UFC. Which, you know, at a certain point I didn't think it would be possible to be obtained that soon, but with the way things went in 2022 with my professional career and talking to a lot of people that's in the industry as well, and as well as my coaches, we believe that's a very obtainable goal. Obviously, I'm gonna have to work very hard. I'm gonna have to take some hard fights, but that is my first and foremost goal. All the other goals are supplementary goals, goals that'll come alongside me to continue doing what I do. So that's the one that matters the absolute most to me, and really the only one that I'm gonna focus absolutely all of my attention to, and that's to make it to the UFC.
Well, Malcolm, I wish you nothing but the best of luck, man, for 2023. Thank you for hopping on here with me today.
Thank you very much, my man. I'll talk soon.